Directive EU 2015/849 on the prevention of the use of the financial system for the purposes of money laundering or terrorist financing, AMLD4. Directive EU 2015/849 on the prevention of the use of the financial system for the purposes of money laundering or terrorist financing, also known as AMLD4, is an important piece of legislation in the European Union's efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. In this tutorial, we will explore the key provisions and requirements of AMLD4 and how it contributes to the broader framework of anti-money laundering laws and regulations in Europe. Background and context. To understand AMLD4, it is essential to have an overview of the broader context of anti-money laundering laws and regulations in Europe. Money laundering is the process of making illegally gained proceeds appear legal by disguising their true origin. It is a significant global issue that undermines the integrity of financial systems and enables the financing of organized crime, terrorism, and other illicit activities. In response to the growing threats posed by money laundering and terrorist financing, the European Union has implemented a comprehensive framework of laws and regulations. These measures aim to enhance transparency, increase cooperation, and establish effective mechanisms to prevent, detect, and combat money laundering and terrorist financing across the EU member states. Scope and objectives of AMLD4. AMLD4 is part of this overarching framework and builds upon the previous anti-money laundering directives. Its primary objectives are to strengthen the EU's financial system's resilience to money laundering and terrorist financing, enhance cooperation and information sharing between EU member states, harmonize AML regulations across the EU to create a level playing field for businesses and support an integrated financial market, ensure a risk-based approach to AML compliance, focusing resources on the areas of highest risk. AMLD4 introduces several important provisions and requirements that financial institutions and designated non-financial businesses and professionals (DNFBPS) must comply with. Some of the key provisions include risk assessment. Financial institutions and DNFBPs are required to conduct a risk assessment to identify, mitigate, and manage the money laundering and terrorist financing risks they face. This assessment should consider customer product and geographic risks, among other factors. Customer due diligence, CDD. AMLD4 sets out the requirements for conducting CDD on customers, including the identification and verification of the customer's identity, beneficial ownership, and continuous monitoring of the business relationship. Enhanced due diligence, ED, in high-risk situations, such as dealing with politically exposed persons, PEPs, or transactions involving countries with weak AML controls. Enhanced due diligence measures are required to be applied. Record keeping. Financial institutions and DNFBPS must retain customer identification data, transaction records, and other relevant documents for at least 5 years. Reporting and cooperation. Suspicious transaction reports, STRs, and other relevant information must be reported to the competent authority in each member state. AMLD4 promotes cross-border cooperation and information sharing between the authorities of different member states. Penalties and sanctions. Member states are required to establish effective, proportionate and dissuasive sanctions for breaches of AMLD4's provisions. Implementation and enforcement. AMLD4 was transposed into national law by each EU member state. This allows for flexibility in implementation to suit local circumstances while ensuring that the key requirements and objectives are met uniformly across the EU. Member states are also responsible for designating the competent authorities tasked with supervising and enforcing compliance with AMLD4. Financial institutions and DNFBPs are required to take appropriate measures to prevent, identify, and report money laundering and terrorist financing activities. They must establish effective internal policies, controls, and procedures, provide AML training to their staff, and maintain an ongoing AML compliance program. Impact and future developments. AMLD4 has had a significant impact on the fight against money laundering and terrorist financing in Europe. It has improved the overall effectiveness and harmonization of AML regulations across EU member states, resulting in a more robust and integrated financial system. However, the evolving nature of money laundering and terrorist financing risks requires continuous adaptation of the legal framework. Subsequent directives, such as AMLD 5 and its amendments, have further expanded the EU's AML regime by strengthening customer due diligence, increasing transparency regarding beneficial ownership, and addressing new technologies used for financial transactions. In conclusion, AMLD 4 is a crucial component of Europe's efforts to prevent the use of the financial system for money laundering and terrorist financing. Imposing robust requirements on financial institutions and DNFBPS reinforces the EU's commitment to combat illicit financial activities and protect the integrity of its financial systems. Compliance with AMLD 4 is essential for businesses operating in Europe, ensuring that they contribute to a safe and secure financial environment.